talk about the need for an AI gateway. This is a space that is already very, very crowded, and there's a lot of hype around AI gateways. They are all over the place, right? And in this session, I would like to take the opportunity to think about how the technology that we use has changed, and what problems AI gateways are trying to solve, and should we need one, should we not need one, and when to use what technology, right? So, well, first of all, a little bit of me. I'm working for a company that's called Tetrate. I'm an open source lover. I have been a member of the Apache Software Foundation for many years, and more recently I've been contributing to the Envoy AI Gateway project, which is an open source project that is building AI features, bringing AI features like LLM support and MCP support to the Envoy proxy. So, if we think about it, the way we exchange information with the outside world, the way we consume information, the way we interact with external systems has changed a lot in the just recent years, right? We were used to consume APIs, send requests, get a response back, send the same request, and get the same response back. So we were working mostly on systems that were deterministic, right? But since a few years back, we have started moving towards a non-deterministic world. We started interacting with LLMs, with the rise of ChatGPT. Everyone started just writing chat completions there, right? You write a request, send some context, get a response back, ask the same question, the same prompt, and you get a completely different response. So this fundamental change to a non-deterministic world, to a more probabilistic world, has created some challenges around trusting the outputs from LLMs. What can we do? How we can control and have security and things around these new workflows. But it's even worse because it's not us anymore interacting with the systems. We are delegating more and more to other entities that are taking actions on behalf of us. We have these autonomous systems, autonomous agents that are executing tasks on our behalf. They are making decisions, and they are interacting with these non-deterministic systems, and how we govern and how we control all that is becoming very, very challenging. These autonomous agents with the rise of MCP are also becoming more and more powerful because they have now standard tools, standard mechanisms to access the outside world, to enrich the context and contribute to the context, right? So it started taking off, right? Now MCP is all over the place, and it's moving from running local MCP servers, standard I/O, with the addition of protocols like server-sent events or the streamable HTTP, we are seeing the rise of remote MCP servers as well, right? So, and it's normal, right? So the way we are working today has changed completely. The way we write documentation in a way that LLMs can better understand so that they can better do their tasks. The way we write APIs, the main consumers of the APIs are no longer simple clients or users. We have agents that are the main consumers of APIs now. So we are starting to write MCP servers. It makes a lot of sense if you have a SaaS or an internet product to build an MCP server as your API so that agents can interact with it. And we are seeing the rise of MCP servers like Context7, GitHub, and others that are providing their own just hosted MCP servers. So with the rise of remote MCP servers and how easy it is to start consuming those even without having to install anything on your machine, right? How to control and how to overcome the challenges that you will start facing becomes important. For example, when your agents are accessing 3, 4 different MCP servers to accomplish a task, what happens when one MCP server does not respond? What happens? If that MCP server is critical to accomplish the task, right? Perhaps the agent will decide to, okay, I will just try another one, right? But probably that one is not the right one to accomplish the task, right? What happens with these cases? How we handle that? Right? Agents also have to deal with the rapidly evolving protocol, right? So there are several releases out there now, right? There are more releases coming, right? And although there's some negotiation in the MCP protocol when you establish a session, right? There's this handshake where you negotiate, I support this version, I'm this version, I support these features. The fact is that the agents will need to understand the versions of the protocol that every single MCP server they are communicating with supports. And this compatibility matrix becomes challenging, especially with a rapidly growing protocol and rapidly evolving protocol like MCP. Another new problem when you start consuming more and more MCP servers, I don't know if that's readable or not, is context bloating, right? So you start having bigger and bigger contexts. You have now 3, 4 MCP servers, each may have 10, 20 tools. So you're sending all the information to the LLM, and this is one error that I was getting when using the GPT-4o mini model, where it has a limited context window that it can handle, right? And just because of the amount of tools that I was using, the LLM said, no, I cannot handle this. You need to use another model that allows more tokens, right? So tool bloating and context bloating is a real problem for 2 reasons. One is this: some models may not be able to handle that. The other one is tool confusion, or tool shadowing, like we saw in the talk before, right? So the LLMs need to spend more time trying to figure out what is the right tool to call. And if there are more tools available, LLMs will just try. And they will call the wrong tool, give you an answer. You'll say no, agents will say, no, this is not what I need. We'll call another tool, try it out, and this is just a waste of tokens and money in the end. Right? So some of these problems are new, some of these problems have been there for a while, right? For example, how you can discover the MCP servers that you can trust, that you want your company to use. How you can have authentication and authorization so that you are not accessing MCP servers that are too powerful to do actions that you should not be doing. How can you provide resiliency for critical MCP servers? How can you provide high availability or even load balancing for those MCP servers that are critical for your tasks and for your agents? Or how can you observe and monitor the entire AI conversation between the agent, LLM, and MCP servers to understand what's going on and how to troubleshoot when you don't get expected results or when something simply breaks? Right? Those are known problems that existed already in the web services APIs. Right? But there are new problems like the ones that we mentioned, the context bloating, tool confusion, tool poisoning, the need for guardrails, right? Decision fatigue, this is also another one that once you have clicked allow once, allow once, allow once, allow once, you say, okay, fuck it, just do whatever you want, right? And this is a real problem, right? Because we are not there to spend time just clicking and allowing tools, right? We should be just spending time in what matters, but this presents a problem because you're opening the door to the next tool being an untrusted one with undesired side effects, right? So some of these problems have already started to being addressed by the community. So we have seen the MCP registry as a standard API and standard place to start standardizing how to publish MCP servers. When it comes to authentication and authorization, we are seeing rapidly evolving the authorization spec for MCP. This, for example, links to one of the proposals to have secure URL elicitations that will allow out-of-band credential exchanging for MCP servers. So this is rapidly evolving, right? And we also have, for example, on the observability space, the open inference proposal, right? That it already kind of standardizes the attribute names, trace names for tracing, metrics, and all the attributes that are specific to LLMs, like the model being used. And also they are standardizing attributes for function calling and MCP. Right? So the industry is kind of getting there. But for the new problems, the main challenge is that they need deep understanding of the MCP protocol. Right? And the tools that exist out there, mostly understanding MCP is not challenging, but in the context of an HTTP, right, most of the existing technologies are mostly based on HTTP headers, metadata routing, but not doing deep inspection of the bodies of the request payloads because that's expensive. Right? So many of these problems can be tackled by AI gateways, and this is why they're becoming so popular. Right? AI gateways, in this picture, this is an MCP-centric talk, right? They are in between the agents and the MCP servers, but they can also be put in between the agents and the LLMs to complete the picture, right? But this is a unique place, a single place, where you can start enforcing all these policies. You can start enforcing authentication primitives. You can start creating custom policies in the gateway in a single place. And since these gateways will be fully capable and will understand the MCP protocol, they will be uniquely positioned to inspect all the bytes that are going back and forth. You can inspect the requests, you can inspect the prompts, you can inspect the responses and make sure that they are legit, right? And you can start adding more features, like, for example, selecting tools. What tools to expose from those MCP servers to your users, right? And have more user-catered, agent-catered, or persona-catered tool exposure. right? Also, they will provide you with the primitives like resiliency, load balancing, to make sure that if a request to an MCP server, for example, fails, the gateways may automatically retry or try to reach another instance or fail over to another MCP server. Right? So all these primitives are already there in AI gateways with the addition of metrics, traces, and they provide a single place where all these features can be added. Right? And this is why we see so many MCP servers becoming popular and popular. Right? So that's a big question, right? With a completely bloated space, with so many gateways, right? How do you pick the right one? Right? And the thing is that we are seeing MCP, it's just kind of skyrocketing in popularity, and it's being started to be used in production, right? People are already experimenting a lot, but when thinking about using it for real in your enterprise, right, you need to think production, not experimenting, right? And what does that mean, right? So if you think about it, when you put your gateway in production, it will fail at some point. You will have an outage, right? What happens then? Is it a single vendor project? Is there a community behind? You have documentation? Do you have best practices on how to operate that gateway? How do you deploy that, right? Because there are many projects that are, say, 12 months, 1 year old, something like that, right? And this is a challenge when you want to go production because you're lacking runbooks, you're lacking experience in general, right? So one of the projects I'm contributing to is Envoy AI Gateway, which is an open source project that is building AI features on top of the battle-tested Envoy proxy. I don't know if you're familiar with Envoy proxy, the general layer 7 proxy. And Envoy AI Gateway is basically adding support for LLMs, understanding chat completions, understanding embeddings, understanding AI features in general, right? And it is adding these AI features there while keeping all the building blocks of Envoy, core building blocks, all the resiliency primitives, circuit breaking, rate limiting, authentication, authorization. The way you operate Envoy doesn't change. You can use the existing monitoring tools. You know how to operate. You know the metrics. You know how they work, right? So Envoy AI Gateway is an open source project that already has support for LLM and stuff. And we at Tetrate have been working very hard to add MCP support to Envoy AI Gateway. So we have just contributed the MCP support for Envoy AI Gateway. So starting today, it is possible to also use Envoy not only to proxy your AI traffic with LLMs, but also to start proxying MCP and starting understanding how that works, right? So the thing I want to do, it's like, let's see it in action. So I want to show using Envoy AI Gateway project. I will be using a managed service, managed infrastructure for Envoy AI Gateway, which is a more curated, it's the easiest way to get started with Envoy AI Gateway. So here I have Goose. I don't know if you ever used Goose. This is a open source client, open source agent, right? Like Claude, but it's more general purpose to assist developers. So one task that I will do, that I want to do is, hey Goose, I want to attend this event that is happening, the event EnvoyCon, and I want you to figure out where the event is happening, when it's happening, look for some flights to go there, and just ask for budget approval. Open a GitHub ticket and ask for budget approval for me, okay? And this will use several MCP servers, right? So first thing that I would do is just go to Goose and enable the GitHub MCP, for example, right? Because I will create issues in a GitHub repository. When I do that, there's some, I don't know if it will be visible or not, but Goose already is warning, like, hey, you have 135 tools enabled here, right? This is just going to kill the performance of the LLM, right? And the agent is going to have a hard time trying to figure out what tools to use for this job, right? So this is already the just tool confusion problem, right? So what can we do? Instead, we are going to use this managed service for Envoy AI Gateway. Let me just remove the GitHub extension. And here, this is just managed infrastructure for Envoy AI Gateway, where we have an MCP catalog with some already well-known MCP servers. We will be using the Kiwi flight search to search for flights for the event. We're using the GitHub MCP server to create issues for budget approval, the Bright Data MCP server to do some web search, right? And one of the things that you can do with Agent Router and things like this is you can create your own profiles. I'm going to use this event planning agent profile that already aggregate a set of MCP servers that you want to use, right? So in this profile, you can see that I'm assigned just a single endpoint that I can use as my MCP server. And this already has the Kiwi MCP server added, the GitHub server added, and the Bright Data server added, right? But I'm not going to use all the tools. I wanted to avoid bloating the context and then spending so many tokens, right? And I also want to make sure that only the right tools are exposed to this agent. So the agent is not confused and it can't use anything else. So I'm just using this search engine tool. For GitHub, I'm only just selecting the tools for issues and so on, right? Also, I have configured authentication here so that this server is authenticated. I have configured the URL of my identity provider here. So let's see how I could use that in Goose and see how it works. There's a single one-click install in Goose. It will say, do you want to install this extension? Yes. And well, the first thing that it will do is take me to the authentication provider because this endpoint that I was seeing there required authentication. I will authenticate and authorize it. Okay. And now I have the extension enabled in Goose, and I can see my extension here that I can start using, right? If we go to Goose, we will see that I don't have GitHub anymore, but I don't have the problem of so many tools there, right? Because now this agent with this profile and this endpoint is already configured to only have limited access to those tools. Right? And I can go ahead and let me copy this prompt. I have a prompt somewhere here, right? To say, hey, I want to go to this EnvoyCon North America. Just help me find some flights and stuff, right? And Goose will start doing the tasks, start just figuring out what to call, what tools to call. Okay, I want to just use the search engine tool. Do you want to call it? Yes, please call it for me. Okay, allow. So, and it will just, here when you start using things like this, you can see how chatty these things can become, right? So allow once. I'm intentionally just doing allow once so that I have to go through the pain of allowing everything, right? But if you think about it, having just a dedicated endpoint for a profile for a specific task, right? It also helps with the, okay, this is the model. It also helps selecting what tools you want the agent to be exposed to so that this kind of decision fatigue of clicking, right, can be reduced because you already know that only the right tools are the ones that will be just used by the agent, right? So you have more freedom to use only the tools that matter for the task, right? So in this case, it searched for a flight, it found something, but it did not create. This is just also handshake with the model. Use the tool to search from flights, right? And this is the problem with non-determinism, right? So you can run the same thing. Sometimes it will go all in autonomously to do the things. Sometimes it will say, okay, I have done this, right? So in the context of this also, making sure that all the accesses to the tools are secure, guardrails and stuff, it's not only, now it's looking for the flights. Anyway, so it's not only about requiring the LLM, the agent to only use the tools that you want it to use, right? By having an AI gateway and an MCP proxy, you can also start implementing guardrails. Oh, this request failed, you can retry it. Common app. So you can start putting guardrails because you're inspecting all the bytes that are going back and forth and all that stuff, right? So AI gateways are uniquely positioned to be the single point where you can apply security. You can start applying policy instead of just doing tool filtering like we're doing here. You have a unique place where you can start bringing your own policies. For example, permissioning, tool permissioning. What user can access this tool is no longer just user selection. This profile URL, who can access these tools, right? Only this user, only that user, right? And this provides a unique endpoint and unique single place where you can centrally manage all that. This is it. So go to the Envoy AI Gateway website if you want to try. Thank you.